The classroom buzzed with quiet anticipation as Mr. Lee stood before the students. Today's theme is self-introduction. He looked across the room, encouraging, and said, I'd like you to draw a picture that presents yourself on drawing paper. He leaned forward slightly, smiling with confidence. Easy, right? A dreamy scene followed in his voice, a girl painting a classic portrait. You can draw a person, then another a canvas of vibrant objects. Or a still life is fine too, a gentle hand sketching with grace. Or any drawing style is acceptable. Mr. Lee emphasized his point, resting his hand on the desk, gaze warm, and said, Try expressing yourself however you like. Mr. Jia spoke to the class. This is your first assignment at the Korea Art Academy. The students were busy drawing on their easels with the Korean Academy of Arts in the background, its grand architecture gleaming under the sunlight. Jihan sat quietly, glancing around the room, pondering as she thought, Mr. Lee said the students, Looking at this picture, I can see you've studied very hard. The scene unfolds in a classroom setting where the teacher engages with the students. One of the students, a girl, seems somewhat distracted but attentive as the teacher speaks to her. He asks her, Did you perhaps attend XX Academy? She replies with a slight nod. Yes, how did you know that? The teacher continues, acknowledging her with a knowing look. It's drawn in a style very typical of that academy, he remarks, seemingly referring to her artistic approach. The student replied, I, I see. Meanwhile, another student in the background listens carefully as the teacher turns back to the class. Since everyone has now become university students, as your first step, I'd like you all to find your own unique style. Let's work hard, he encourages. His words seem to resonate with the students, especially with the girl in focus, who appears determined but uncertain about her own artistic direction. Her answer comes with a subtle smile. Yes, yes. The scene ends with the sense that the students are starting a journey, one that promises self-discovery and growth in their artistic abilities. The teacher says, now, next, as he starts drawing on the whiteboard. He continues, let's see, who drew this? A student who is sitting in front on right side continued to observe it and adds, that's unique. As they keep staring at the object, the next student sitting on left side respond, but the outline is very clear. One of the students who is sitting in the back and said, what's that? A mobile phone? At this point, the teacher asked, is it Lee Jae-ha? Student raises their hand and said, yes, my name is Lee Jae-ha, with smile on his face perhaps of their experience, and told the teacher, I am a fresh university student, a first-year art student with 10 years of designer experience. In the next scene, he stood alone in a shadowy void, the word good-natured floating above him like a curse. In his memories, people chatted casually. That's the only word I can use to describe my former life. I always pushed my true feelings aside and never complained about the work I was forced to do. I worked my ass off, he thought bitterly, recalling the countless times he bent over backward for others, but instead of appreciation, he was given a new title. Clingy bastard. That was the worst label ever applied to me, he muttered in disbelief. He didn't want to be misunderstood. Don't get me wrong, he explained quietly to himself. I'm just taking advantage of my personality and framing me. Sitting in the dim glow of streetlights, alone with empty bottles, the pain of being misjudged lingered. His eyes narrowed, heavy with thoughts. What does Yeha want to be when she grows up? A sudden flash of childhood memory bloomed bright colors, innocent dreams. The best designer in the world, a younger voice cheered, full of joy. I'm going to be the designer that the whole world will be looking up to. Back in the dark room, he clenched his fist, the weight of failure sinking deep. A soft whisper escaped him. Okay. Then again, firmer. Okay. He raised his head toward the light. If I got another chance. Lying alone in the darkness, he whispered to himself, I'm never going to live like this again. The regret, the failure, it was all too heavy. I fell asleep thinking about it and woke up. He drifted off to sleep thinking about it and woke up in a different time. I was 20 years old back in the early 2000s. Confused at first, he stumbled into a classroom, still processing the shift, but slowly a realization dawned on him. The second chance he longed for was real. Staring at the old desktop computer, he chuckled. Well, of course, I don't miss using this, he muttered, both amused and nostalgic. Though surprised, he wasn't angry. I was upset at first, but I was rather happy that my wish had come true. A quiet resolve formed in his smile. This time, I'll be the one. He stood determined, I'm going to make it to the top. That's a pre. In a flashback, someone asked him, why did you decide to join this? He replied, I want to be a designer who is recognized at the top. He had a clear vision of the future. The teacher leaned in with interest. I see. So why did you choose the design? He smiled. Yeah, it all depends on the answer. Confidently, he explained, I think that as technology develops, design will simplify, and cell phones will evolve into something that only make calls but also use the camera, internet, etc. As he held a prototype drawing, he added, so I made the screen as big as possible by getting rid of buttons and instead went for a touchscreen. A bold prediction from a student aiming to design the future. The teacher nodded thoughtfully. I see. Then with a slight smile he added, if it goes that far, it should be called a computer rather than a cell phone. His comment sparked reactions. Another student questioned curiously, is that what a cell phone is? A voice chimed in, that's a leap too far. Then laughter echoed in the room. Ha 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 ha. A cell phone without buttons. But not everyone was amused. You are too paranoid, someone said. Jay Hai, hearing his name, turned around surprised. Gulp? He stood before the class, his design displayed for all to see. The room was silent, anticipation hanging in the air. Mr. Jia, the instructor, examined the work closely. A smile formed on his face. It's definitely the best thing I've seen today, he declared. A student in the back reacted with surprise, exclaiming, oh! Mr. Jia continued, as a former industrial designer, that's pretty high praise. The student, humbled, responded softly, thank you. Then, with a quiet determination, added, yes. Reflecting inwardly, he thought, the reason I'm putting all my effort into this class is not because I'm a serious person, but because… He paused, considering his true motivation. I want to appeal to the authority in the Korean industrial design world, he concluded silently. Mr. Jia, still holding the drawing, looked up and addressed him. Mr. Lee Jung-yi. Narration floats over an ethereal background. Every year, Mr. Lee selects one of the new students to join his studio. Ji Hyun reflects deeply, gazing at the scene. If you become one of them, you can get a part-time job, participate in exhibitions. He pictures himself working with Mr. Lee immersed in creativity. It's not an exaggeration to say that it's a great way to get a part-time job, an exhibition, or even a job. But his eyes shine with resolve as the thought continues. So in this life, being chosen as a teacher is the first step to success. Back in the classroom, Ji-hwan sits in silence, expression tightening. The only drawback is that, he thinks, uncertainty creeping in. What? Cut to Mr. Lee speaking, calm and observant. From what I've seen… Mr. Lee looks at Ji-hyun's cell phone sketch again. I don't see how it can be put to practical use. Ji-hyun quietly processes his words, his expression unreadable. Mr. Lee, holding up the sleek, futuristic phone design, began thoughtfully. First of all, I think there is a limit to how much heat can be generated by the battery and how much weight can be reduced. As the students looked on, intrigued, the phone shimmered under the light. He continued, future technology may be able to do it. But if you keep relying on future technology, it's just a fantasy. He looked directly at Ji-hyun, his tone gentle yet firm. Ji-hyun, standing near his board, absorbed the words, clearly affected. In his mind, thoughts swirled. Smartphones won't be around for another 10 years or so… A subtle pause as he reflected on his journey. I'm a former industrial designer, so I tried to design the future. He smiled to himself, a mix of pride and self-awareness. I guess I'm too far ahead of my time. Mr. Lee smiled, arms open as he addressed the class. But this point here is not wrong, as expected. Then, with a clap of enthusiasm, he added, well, now let's give a round of applause to Mr. Jae Ha for showing us a great picture. The room responded with laughter and energy. Cheers! Ji-hyun blinked, caught slightly off guard. I bet you guys can't stand it. Looking around, he saw a girl sketching confidently beside another student. You guys must not be able to do better than us. Reflecting, Ji-hyun remembered, I've been a teacher for a few months now. He scanned the room full of focused students. You were all students just a few months ago, Mr. Lee reassured them all warmly. I'm sure you are still be in the habit of preparing for exams. He pointed to one of the displayed works. That's why I used a different strategy to get the professor's attention. With a grin, he closed his thought. That's what practical drawing and ideas are for. After gaining the teacher's praise in the last session, Ji Hyun's excitement was hard to miss. Although the idea was to borrow a few memories from previous life, wow, he smiled brightly, clearly proud. But I'm sure you guys would have done the same thing, right? Though slightly criticized, he nodded in agreement. Mr. Lee, ever calm and encouraging, continued, I know I gave you a lot of pointers today. I wasn't trying to judge your work in any way. He turned toward the whole class, his voice serious yet warm. From now on, you should not paint for the teacher's appreciation. Then, with purpose in his voice, he declared, you need to draw pictures that will be evaluated by the public, not by your teachers. Therefore, the purpose of my class is to help you learn to draw a picture that you want to show to the public, pictures that you can be proud of. Ji Hyun exhaled with a soft sigh, taking it all in. A moment later, he said with quiet determination, I know I've taken this class before, but I'm still tired, taking this class with a much lighter heart. Then, stepping forward, he added, let's take a look at the last piece. What? Mr. Seo Ji-won sits quietly drawing as the room feels wrapped in soft light and floral warmth. From the front, a voice calls out, Mr. Seo Ji-won? He pauses slightly and his gaze shifts to the speaker, a composed girl sitting across the room. I've heard of you, she says simply. Ji-won, a bit surprised but calm, replies in thought, your work has impressed me in a different way. She remains silent, her expression unreadable but her eyes focused. The moment hangs quietly before Ji-won stands and walks away, lost in thought, his steps echoing faintly in the hallway. Ji-won freezes mid-step, eyes wide with sudden realization. I remember now. His thoughts swirl. The guy who was chosen by Mr. Lee in his previous life. Yes, it was Seo Ji-won. Memories flood in. He recalls a black and white photo of Ji-won sitting calmly, yet something about her work had struck deeply. I never thought I'd draw a self-portrait. I was so shocked when I first saw it. I think there's a clear reason why, he reflects. It's as if every little thing has a meaning. You see something that normal people don't see? You're a genius. As he walks, his expression hardens. If I'm wrong, I won't be chosen again because I know already. It's my life. Suddenly, his phone buzzes in his hand. What? He mutters, caught off guard by the interruption. Ji Hyun's steps turn into a sprint. The sound of his running echoes, his mind races, heart pounding. Dr. Lee is calling. Eyes wide and full of urgency, he bolts through the hallway, phone gripped tightly. Okay. Determination flashes across his face. In this life, the chosen one will be... He clenches his fist in resolve. It's me. Charging down the corridor, he reaches the door and bursts through. Sir. His voice is loud and clear, filled with hope, fear, and anticipation. In the quiet hum of the art classroom, a voice called out, Hey, Mr. Jeha. The teacher, slightly startled, turned his gaze toward the student. What? He responded, clearly not expecting to be interrupted. Sitting with a calm yet curious look was Ji-hyun, dressed casually, her presence both focused and a little distant. With a gentle, almost teasing tone, she asked, Why, Ji-hyun? Her eyes met his, as if prompting a question larger than her words. The narrator reflects with a gentle sense of relief, surrounded by soft floral imagery. The thing I felt lucky about in this regression was a subtle flash of realization follows as the thought completes that I didn't have to go back before the entrance exam. The tone suggests gratitude and a bit of wonder, perhaps a second chance, but without having to start entirely from scratch. The simple words float into view. And yet, even with the relief, something still feels incomplete. Standing before a familiar building, he pauses. Why am I? The sign reads, Today. Art classroom. A new beginning? Or something more? He stands there in disbelief. At a prep art class for the entrance exam? Then she appears beside him. And with this girl of all people, a twist he didn't expect. She glances at him, he stays silent, sweating nervously. And then it echoes in his mind, just one. Mr. Lee stands before the students and says, Every year I scout one and only one freshman into my atelier. Everyone listens closely. He continues, And what I want to say is, Mr. Lee, seated at his desk, smiles and says, Between the two of you, I want to recruit one of you toe for my atelier. The girl sits quietly while the boy stands beside her, both waiting for his decision. Hearing that right to his face, my mental state is, he thinks to himself, this is seriously intense. He hesitates for a moment, then speaks up, breaking the silence. Can't you just take both of us? He asks, desperately hoping for a different answer. Mr. Lee looks at the two students and says, Unfortunately, there's only room for one. The boy, feeling the pressure, lets out a sigh and mutters under his breath, Ha, you're really in the way right now. He clearly feels frustrated, yet doesn't say much more. A tense silence fills the air between them. The girl, unimpressed and calm, asks, Just now, what? Her tone is neutral, as if expecting an explanation, while the boy looks surprised, unsure of how to respond, realizing he might have said something strange. The teacher, with a serious expression, tells the students, So, I want to hold a test to decide between the two of you. He pauses briefly before continuing, adding, It's a bit raw, but when money's involved, you'll feel more motivated, right? The teacher places his hand on the desk, emphasizing the seriousness of the test. The teacher, confidently explaining to the student, says, So, to help you focus, the selected student will receive a scholarship recommendation from a professor. With a pleased smile, the teacher continues, By the way, Jiwon has already agreed. As he says this, there's a subtle glint in his eyes, revealing his satisfaction. Jae-ha, now slightly anxious, responds, If you have any objections, Jae-ha, now's the time. As his thoughts swirl with anticipation. Determined, Jae-ha replies firmly, I'll do it. Then, looking up with a pleading expression, Jae-ha continues, Please, let me take the test. His earnestness is clear, as he hopes this will be his chance to prove himself. As they walk down the hallway, the narrator speaks. A junior asked me to recommend a student, you see. Jae-ha walks beside Jiwon, the two of them lost in thought. Their footsteps echo softly on the floor. As they enter the room, the atmosphere is calm and quiet. The teacher assures, It's a small class, so no need to worry. With a soft clatter of footsteps, they make their way inside. Then the teacher adds, Excuse me for entering. The students exchange looks, the tension slowly easing in the room. The character looks around, feeling a sense of nostalgia and tension in the air. Woo, it's been a while, they think to themselves, reflecting on the environment. As they glance at their surroundings, the feeling of competition and pressure in the air is overwhelming. This suffocating tension and the competitive structure, they continue, noticing how the atmosphere has remained the same. The character walks into the room, observing the students all working diligently. The endlessly repeating days that seemed like they'd never end, they reflect, thinking back to the monotony of their routine. They observe the silent atmosphere of the classroom. This silent battlefield hasn't changed a bit. The pressure of the competitive environment continues to weigh heavily. The teacher greets the new students with excitement. You two must be the ones Professor Lee introduced? With a big smile and enthusiasm, he continues, Welcome! Whoa, such a handsome and beautiful pair. His exaggerated expression and wide gesture add an extra layer of humor. The teacher warmly invites the students into the room with a gentle, welcoming tone. Please come in. On the table, two steaming cups of coffee sit, adding a cozy atmosphere to the scene. The man, Jongkang Che, introduces himself with a wide, welcoming smile. He says, I'm Jongkang Che, the director here. I went to the same university as your senior. He then continues, clearly impressed, You two are the top freshmen this year, right? The man beams with excitement, eager to acknowledge their accomplishments. The two students listen. The director smiles warmly, saying, You two must be the ones Professor Lee introduced? The male student laughs and replies, well, I wouldn't go that far, while scratching his head. The female student remains silent, glancing downward. The director continues, your senior said, the male student is looking at the director's office as he hears, they're going to choose one of you for the atelier. He nods and replies, yes. Then he grins and says, just one, huh? What a waste. If it were up to me, I'd take both. The director says, that said, since it's a request from my senior, I'll judge you strictly. As he speaks, he adjusts his glasses and gives a thoughtful expression. The director says, I want you two to serve as models for the other students. Then, continuing, he adds, of course, there are students who haven't caught up in skill yet. Many of them underestimate the entrance exam. The scene has a mystical, magical aura around it. The instructor's voice echoes with criticism, steady and sharp. Some are arrogant without reason, a critical tone suggesting frustration with overconfident students. Others keep repeating the same thing, drawing out of habit. The voice sounds disappointed, calling out those stuck in routine. With that attitude, the tone cuts off sharply, implying consequences are coming. The focus shifts to a boy in glasses, his expression intense as he speaks. Passing is nothing but a dream. His tone is cold, crushing hope. The instructor's voice cuts in sharply. In other words, you want them to snap out of it by watching us? He delivers this with a no-nonsense attitude. The boy in plaid and the girl in denim sit together looking serious. Boy in plaid. In other words, you want them snap out of it by watching us? Cut to close up on the in-glasses. He takes a slow sip of his coffee, calm and collected. That's exactly it, but there's one condition. A soft, glowing light surrounds the scene. The boy in glasses continues speaking with confidence. Since you were introduced by your senior, I'm sure your skills are guaranteed. Boy in apron, sitting at a table. His posture is serious as he prepares to draw. The focus is intense. Boy in glasses. But I want you to draw something the students can learn from. The boy in plaid glances down at his hands, thinking carefully and said, not just showing off our skill. We have to consider the student's level, huh? His hand gripping his knee tightly. This might honestly be harder than the actual entrance exam. He looks up, his face filled with doubt. What kind of drawing should I even do? The practical exam is just about to end, so let's go take a look.